So the globalist elite are meeting in Davos, Switzerland for the World Economic Forum, and I wanted to know if you're invited. No, me neither. Look, what's happening there is really just a small piece of the puzzle. If we follow it through history and we understand through the cycles, and we can actually pinpoint the connections between the businesses, governments, and many different institutions in between, we start to realize that this is all part of a grand master plan. This is documented. The information is there, and in fact, they like to tell people what they plan on doing before they do it. The very first thing is, what's the problem? I'm going to show you what's going on today, why energy prices are rising. We'll look at shortages. We'll look at all these issues. And the second thing is, what's the solution? Now, that's not the solution from my own perspective. This is the solution they are going to provide us. It's going to be the 0.001% versus everybody else. Does that sound fun? Let's get into it. Up to 5,000 soldiers to be deployed to secure upcoming WEF meeting in Davos. You know everything is going to be A-okay when you got 5,000 soldiers needing to protect the people there that are supposedly doing the good deeds of the many. Is that odd? Is that strange to you? What about this? Police and military have blocked access to the roads in Davos where Klaus Schwab is holding his World Economic Forum summit. People, vehicles, and fingerprints are now being checked. You could see this gentleman right here as he gets his fingerprints scanned by this, I don't know what that is, a police officer, security forces. I've never seen anything like that personally. Fingerprints at the Bilderberg, they could be tough, they could detain people, but never seen fingerprints before. The world's elite have arrived in Davos on over 1,000 private jets to lecture you about climate change. Is it really unusual? Is it something that circumstances are just out of whack? Like, why are they doing this? You've got these 2,500 people that are gathering around, and they're there to discuss supposedly the needs of the many, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Private jet emissions quadrupled during the 2022 World Economic Forum. I think it's important when you see this, you have literally over 1,000 jets coming through, and they're trying to talk about climate change when they say this is causing the problem. I don't know about you, but I think it's unusual, to say the least. You could see this military buildup is incredible. Just look at this. What kind of artillery do they need at these events? I understand that whenever you have these type of people, you're going to have protests, you're going to have problems, you need security. I get it. But what kind of message do you send when you're having like world war type of machinery being put in place on the streets? This is not a good look. Let me just say it like that. Okay? And now I want to look at something else that, for the most part, is not understood by many. What we're going to get into is the reasons why this is all happening. You see, the World Economic Forum is just one of many. If you look at where we've been over the last while, what have we really seen? We've seen higher inflation levels. We've seen people that have had shortages of just about everything. And yet, the 0.001% of people, the so-called elite, have been able to mastermind their way to the top. They control absolutely everything, and they have no regard for the public. And yet, the solution, as I'll show you in just a minute here, that they provide is higher taxes for you. It's more control over the things that you do. You will not be able to eat what you want. You will have to eat the bugs, as they say. Your financial transactions, each and every one of them, will be tracked and will be scrutinized. Hey, what did you do with that? Why did you send $1,000 to that person? Who are they? What are they doing? You must explain yourself to the authorities in every single circumstances, and all will be run by artificial intelligence. They won't need people. That won't create jobs. This is all going to be done by this technocracy that they've set up right in front of our very eyes. Do I make myself clear? I think what we're in for is harder times. Now, let me explain myself. I'm going to show you what's going on. I'm not just going to say that. I'm not just pulling that off the top of my head. Stick with me here and you're going to get the information right through into the end. I've got good data for you. Look, chief executives, economists brace for recession as Davos begins. 2/5 sphere company failures within a decade. Inflation, volatility, and geopolitical conflict top the risk list. If you see at this particular forum, like I've said, it's just showing us what I've been highlighting over the last while. The CEOs are worried, the CFOs are worried. On the conference calls, they're all talking about the same thing. Inflation is a problem. We can't hire enough people. Wages are out of control. They say they're too high. I think everything is too high, if you want to look at it like that. The house prices are ridiculous. All of these things meeting up at the exact same time, and then you increase interest rates, of course you got a problem. And like I said, it's not just the World Economic Forum, it's just one example, but you can look at people like Larry Summers saying recession still looms, Fed getting closer to done. So we are moving into that region. I just watched an interview with one of the top people at BlackRock, and he was saying that the Fed pivot in 2023 is extremely unlikely. He said it is likely that they will stop increasing interest rates, but the fact that they'll cut rates this year, which he said markets are predicting that, is nonsense. That's BlackRock talking. Now, you got to understand that, yes, they don't want to tell us everything and we're only privy to certain information. But at the same time, if he says things like this and other people say things like this and it doesn't come true after a period of time, then it sort of flips on him. So they can't always provide false information. It doesn't work like that. Look, as Davos opens, Oxfam urges billionaire busting policies. And we see this all across the world. Tax the rich, tax the rich. But what does that actually mean? Well, of course, if they're going to tax people, they're going to tax earnings. You cannot, it is impossible. It is absolutely impossible, no matter what they say, to tax people's wealth. You just can't do that, okay? So if somebody's a billionaire, you can't just say, okay, you're gonna have to pay a one-time tax of $50 billion. Well, is that when the market is up or is it when the market is down? And then suddenly, if the market falls significantly, if it was up, well, do you get a tax rebate? If it was the other way around, how does it work? It doesn't work like this. It can't. So who do they tax? Well, they tax the middle class, upper middle class. That's the way the tax system is built. If you have a corporation, these rules don't apply. It's very, very different. And you could increase the tax rate on corporates, but corporations can decide when they want to pay taxes. So you can push your earnings off into the next quarter and then worry about it next quarter and then worry about it next quarter. This is the way it works. I've talked about this before, documented it many times, but I'll say it again. If you want to read about this, and every single person I've told about this book said it was incredible. Why have they never heard of this book before? It is by Frank Partnoy, and the book is called Infectious Greed. Infectious Greed. If you go to the link in the description under my favorite books, you're going to see Infectious Greed by Frank Partnoy, and he breaks it all down for you. Look, I got more details I need to show you. Look, this is intense. Skipped showers, paper plates, and Arizona suburbs, water is cut off. This is going to happen all over the place, whether it's because of something that goes on with the government, whether it is some policy change, whether it's inflation, whether it's, things are too expensive. It could be many different things. And I'll break that down in a second. The point is, you're going to pay more, you're going to get less. Let me say that again. You're going to get less stuff, paying more. Does that sound like a good deal to you? Yeah, probably not, right? What about this? In California, a drought turned to floods. Forecasters didn't see it coming. This is a place where they've got everything. California has floods. They've got, mudslides I've seen. They've got earthquakes. They've got hot temperatures. They've got the drought. I mean, it's just like all of these things can happen in this place. It's quite intense. But what remains to be seen is people actually being prepared. In any case, it is, oh no, another earthquake. I wasn't prepared. Maybe I should have been prepared. Every single time. It's like, people smarten up. You're going to get crushed. Okay, and then we have this. 15 states, including New York and California, have moved to ban gas-powered vehicle sales. You got to realize that this is happening right before our very eyes. We are being shortchanged on everything. You've got the Davos elite, 1,000 private jets moving in, telling you about your climate change. At the same time, they're going to ban your vehicle. And so you got to get into this electric vehicle. And at certain times when the grid is being used too much, they're going to say you cannot charge your vehicle. What does that also entail? You can't move. You have less mobility. You have more restrictions. Right now, I just posted on my Twitter about one of the MPs in Scotland, I think it was, that basically said we are trying to impose restrictiveness on what people can drive, on people's ability to move around. They literally said that. They want to reduce that by 20%, and they say, this is basically to discourage driving, climate change, and so on. I think it's more about liberty. I think that's really what it is. And then we get into the financial aspect of it. Central bank digital currencies are coming, whether countries are ready or not. Let me repeat that, whether countries are ready or not. It doesn't matter. They need the control. They want to do this onto people. And for a lot of individuals, there is no chance, absolutely no chance that they will be able to get out of it. People are going to be forced on it. And you think, no, not me, not me. They're going to implement it in a way, probably tie it to a universal basic income where you'll be forced to take it. Let me break it down. Whether it's through a natural event, inflation, or government policy, preparing for the potential for power outages and food crisis is important because it can help individuals and communities to better cope with the impacts of a disaster and potentially minimize the loss of life and hardship. This is particularly true in situations where shortages and rations are experienced, as these can exacerbate the already challenging circumstances of a disaster. There are a few simple ways to prepare for disasters, including creating an emergency kit. This should include items such as non-perishable food, water, a flashlight, and other essentials. Making a plan. It's important to have a plan in place for how you and your family will respond to a disaster, including how to communicate with each other. Staying informed. Keep up to date with the latest news and information about potential disasters. Building a food storage. Stock up on non-perishable food items and consider investing in a small generator or other backup power source. Building a community. Get to know your neighbors and other members of your community. This can be helpful in times of disaster, as people can come together to support each other and share resources. Very key. And most importantly, I believe we got to be doing this before the time comes. You can't just sit there at the very last second and say, okay, now I'm going to get to know my neighbors. Now I'm going to start to build a community. Now I'm going to build a little bit of preparation, because what happens every single time? It's too late. They're setting this up. It doesn't have to be for one reason or another. It can just happen because they decide. Some bunch of people out in Switzerland decide that you have to deal with this right now, and that's the end of that. Now you might think to yourself, this is all crazy, this is all kooky. What's this guy talking about? Well, of course, all of this information is documented, is here for us. Every time you post in the comments below, that information goes right in here, and then I make the videos about it. I pull that data, I get all the sources, bring them together. Unlike any other channel, I don't get into the political nonsense. I don't get into the bias. I get into the raw data so that you can make the best decisions for yourself. I've been talking about this for a long time, producing videos for well over 10 years now, and you'll look at it time and time again. We are moving through the cycle. I talked about that, wrote it in black and white in my first book, and of course in the second book, showing you what would happen, and here we are today. It's unbelievable, but this is the way it goes. Look, if you want to know all the details, this is a simple way. You just hit subscribe, and every single day you're going to get the messages you need to know to protect yourself and your family. Take care.